All right, good morning. How are you guys doing today?
Good.
All right, good. A lot of motivation in here, right? So first I'm gonna start off with telling you a little bit about myself and my experience in the Army. Then we'll get into telling you what the Army has to offer you as a young adult, right? So first off, does anyone in the class have people in their family or know somebody that's in the military? All right, right here, what do you got? You have a cousin in the Army? Do you know what they do? No. Do you get to talk to them often? No. Okay.
My dad was in the military.
Oh, what branch of service do you know?
No.
Did he retire?
Yeah.
Okay. What do you got?
I have a cousin in the Navy.
Cousin in the Navy right now? Do you know what they do?
No, but she's in Virginia.
She's in Virginia right now? Okay, cool. What do you got?
One of my cousins is in the Army. He's in the Navy, and he's in Michigan right now studying in college to become a ship captain.
Okay, cool. That's pretty cool. What do you got, man?
My brother's friend, he's in the Army, but he's training to be part of this Secret Service.
Okay, nice. What about you? Did you raise your hand? No? All right. What's your name?
Brianna.
All right. What do you do for hobbies?
I draw.
You draw? You're a drawer? Okay, cool. Anyone in the class have a job, J-O-B, already? Oh, we got 1, 2. I know you work at Publix, you just told me. What about you? Where?
Ice cream shop.
Ice cream shop? Okay. Right, so we all know we're gonna get a job one day, pay our taxes. Hopefully we can find a good career that we're interested in, and hopefully my presentation will help you figure it out what you wanna do. Maybe the military is in your future, maybe not, it's fine. What I'm here to do is to expose the Army and what they have to offer for a young adult like yourself, or a youngster like yourself, all right? So I'll tell you a little bit about myself before we get started in my experience with the Army. All right, so I joined the Army right after I graduated high school. I was still 17 years old. Something that I knew that I wanted to do, right? So the 9/11 happened when I was in the 8th grade. I knew that I was going to join from that time. Something sparked in me. It's something I knew that I had to serve my country, right? So come my senior year, part of my backup plan was actually to go to college, right? So I've been talking to my counselor, and we'd applied for some scholarships, and I've gotten into some community colleges, and I was going to go to college. My primary plan was to join the Army. Right, so I knew that I wanted to, that's how bad I knew that I wanted to serve. For my generation, 9/11 is what kind of shook the world for my generation. And everyone, as far as my peers, were waiting until they could turn 18 or become an adult and serve their country as well, right? So as far as jobs, so I chose to do logistics management, and that's pretty much warehouse operations, warehouse supervision, right? So the reason that I chose to do that job for the military is, first of all, because it's not a combat job, right? So I had no desire to do anything combat related, but I knew that I could do something other than combat stuff, right? So I chose the logistics management because it was a combination of both hands-on and office, right? So it's a combination of both hands-on work, and it's also a desk job as well, right? So that's why I chose to do that for the Army, right? So I've been doing it for 11 years. My initial contract was a 3-year contract. So my idea was I was gonna serve my country for a couple years, get out and go to college full time, right? So I knew that the Army was gonna pay for it, so that was kind of my plan. I get into the Army and I find out that I like it, right? So I like it enough to sign for another couple years. So I re-signed for another couple years. When my time was coming to get out, I was still having fun in what I was doing. Like, I enjoyed doing what I do for the military. I enjoyed being a part of the Army, right? So I continued to re-sign contracts, and my last one was to come here, right? So after 8 years, they decided, or 9 years, they decided that they wanted me to do something outside of my job, and recruiting was it, right? So the Army kind of selects the top 10% of my job, or every job in the Army, pretty much, to come out and do either drill sergeant, recruiting, or instructing, right? So I got selected to come out here and do this, and I enjoy it, right? So I could be anywhere, but I'm here in Florida. So I think I found the best place to do the recruiting at, and that's here in Florida, because I'm right near the beach. I'm originally from California, but the beaches here are a little bit different, right? So they're warmer, and the cost of living is less, right? So it's less expensive to live here in a nice, beautiful area than it is in California. So that's kind of what I like about here. As far as places that I've been since I've been in the Army, so I've been to Virginia. So I was stationed in Virginia for a while. I was in Texas for a while. I had the opportunity to actually get stationed in California. So I was an hour and 15 minutes from where I'm originally from. That's where I was at for the last 3 years before coming here, which was pretty cool. Every weekend I got in my car and I drove home and I hung out with my family and my friends from when before I joined the military. So that was pretty cool. As far as deployments, I do have a couple deployments. So I had been to Iraq 2 times and Afghanistan 1 time, right? So it sounds a little bit scary, and it definitely was not like going to Disneyland. But the thing that I have to say about it is everybody contributes their part to make our Army great, right? So my part is logistics management. So I managed a warehouse while I was down there. So whatever it is, your job, whatever you contribute to the Army, that's what you do when you're overseas, right? So that's what I did. I enjoyed it. Like, it's the first time when I was headed out there, I was scared. Of course, I was nervous. I didn't know what to expect. But afterwards, it became a job to me. So it became fun. I did some things that I'll probably never would have done in my life if it wasn't for the Army. I seen the culture, how it is out there, and it's pretty nice to actually learn a different culture. So that was pretty cool. But 3 deployments. As far as education, right? So I've been in for 11 years. I have my associates in logistics management. I have 3 classes for my bachelor's in business management. I have 3 certifications in logistics management and a Microsoft certification as well. So I've been able to do both. I've been able to do active duty military, which is a full-time job, and continue my education while I've been serving, right? Some goals for the future that I have is 1, to retire, right? So I have another 8-9 years until I can retire from the military and collect a retirement paycheck for the rest of my life, pretty much. Another goal that I have is to finish my master's in business, right? So with that master's, what I want to do is I want to open up my own business, right? So how I plan on doing that is all through the military, right? So the Army is going to give me everything I need to reach that goal of retiring, opening my own business, and being successful at that, right? So how they've done that is they paid 100% of my tuition. So for going to school, I haven't paid 1 penny into my school. The Army has paid for everything so far, and they will continue to pay as long as I continue to take classes and go to school, right? So they gave me the leadership that I'm going to need to actually run a successful business, right? So the Army leadership is probably the best leadership that you'll get probably from any organization, right? So with each rank in the military comes more responsibility, thus more leadership training, right? So the Army has given me that, as well as when it comes to the loan to actually open up this business. I have a good savings plan of how I'm going to open my business and a good idea, but as far as a loan, the Army offers what's called a VA loan, and that's for any of its veterans to open up a small business or buy houses, right? Or you could do both, right? So that's how I'm going to, I came into the Army with the idea to serve my country and to give back, but I found a way to do both, to continue to serve because I enjoy it, but to get the Army to help me get to where I want to go in life, right? Other than that, that's all I have to say about myself. Is there any questions about me? All right, we'll go ahead and get started here. So we'll start this off with careers, right? So the Army or people have this idea that if you join the military, it's to do something combat related. And that's not true, right? So we're a huge organization and we have way more to offer than just tactical training, right? So we're gonna do a quick little exercise where you guys are going to help me out and kind of illustrate the jobs that we have in the military. So what I want you guys to do is to think about a job that you want to do in the future, like a career. If you can't think of one or you don't know what you want to do, think of what a cool job would be to do in the future, right? So this side of the room, go ahead and stand up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you for that career or that job, and if there's a job for it in the military that correlates to it exactly or is similar to it, I'm going to tell you to have a seat because the Army can help you do that job, right? So go ahead. Yeah.
I want to be like a lawyer.
You want to be
You guys have to speak up.
I want to be a lawyer.
All right, she says she wants to be a lawyer. You could definitely be a lawyer in the Army.
I don't really know what I want to do.
All right, what would you think is a cool job?
I don't know.
All right, we'll come back to you. Stay standing.
I want to be like a movie director.
A director.
Yeah.
Yep, we have. Did you know that the Army has a radio station and a news station that is military people, like people, that's their job. It's a 46 series, but yes, we do have that job in the military. Go ahead and have a seat.
I want to be a nurse.
You want to be a nurse? Definitely have tons of medical jobs in the military.
I
What do you
want
got?
to be an attorney.
An attorney? Same thing like a lawyer. Got that one. A surgeon? Doctor? All right, go ahead and have a seat. We got those in the military. Nursing, same thing. All right. All right, so this, you got something?
A mechanic, probably.
A mechanic, definitely got tons of mechanic. Every type of mechanic you can kind of think of, there's one in the Army, right? All right, so this side of the table, go ahead or this side of the class, go ahead and stand up. All right, what type of job you got for me?
Animator.
Animator, what does that entail?
Like I want to have like my own animated TV show. Like cartoons.
Oh, okay. So that would fall like into computer technology?
Yeah, kind of.
Okay, definitely have a job. It's not that direct job, but there's jobs that kind of feed into that. What do you got?
I want to be a
Lawyer?
lawyer.
All right, we definitely have tons of lawyers. What do you got, man?
Animator.
Animator, same thing like her. All right, have a seat. Mechanic, tons of mechanic.
Engineer.
Engineer,
Yeah.
tons of engineers. We have Army Corps of Engineers. Go ahead. Engineer, all right, same. All right, same.
Probably a
Chemist? Okay, yeah, we have a job for that in the Army. Go ahead and have a seat.
Engineer.
Engineer, have a seat. Psychologist, like a doctor. All right, have a seat. Good. Right, so as you can see, the Army has a job for pretty much everybody. Anything you could kind of think of, there's a direct job for it in the Army or something that kind of correlates to it, feeds to that type job, right? All right, let's start off with requirements, right? So what are the requirements to join the Army, right? So first off, we'll start with age, right? So you have to be at least 17 years old with parental consent, right? Meaning both of your parents have to agree to allow you to make the decision to join the military, right? For physical, there are height and weight requirements, and it's by age and gender, right? And how tall you are as far as what the requirement is for you, and that's case by case depending on your age and your gender and your height, right? So physical, medical, right? So there are some medical conditions that will prevent you from joining the military, and those are case by case, right? So me as a recruiter, I probably wouldn't even be able to tell you if you disqualify. What we do is we submit your medical documents to our military doctor, and they determine your eligibility, whether you're qualified or disqualified for military service, right? So case by case when it comes to medical conditions. Tattoos and piercings, right? So we do have a tattoo and piercing policy. For tattoos, it's nothing below the wrist and nothing above the collarbone, right? So everywhere else, if you get a tattoo, as long as it's not gang related, racist, sexist, or inappropriate in that matter, it's fine, right? So the idea is that if you're wearing this uniform here, you wouldn't notice that somebody has tattoos, right? You notice they have tattoos at all, right? Piercings, right? So piercings, we can work with gauges though. So if you gauge your ears or gauge any part of your body, it has to be closed. So we had people that came in to the office, they want to join the Army, and they had real big gauges, and they actually went and got them sewn up, closed up, and they were able to join. But if you have gauges, you will not be able to join at the time, right? So there's things to consider if you're thinking about military, either when you graduate or later on in life, things to consider. You don't want to disqualify yourself from this opportunity, right? Law violations. So for the law violations, it's a case by case, right? So I'll tell you right off the bat, felonies, we're not able to work with felons, right? So there's this conception that you can join the military or go to jail. That is not the case. The Army wants the best of its nation to fight its wars, right? So they determined that criminals are not the best of the best, right? So there's no more go to war, go to jail type stuff. So some stuff we can work with, and some stuff we can't. So the best thing that I have to say to you guys is to just stay out of trouble, right? Don't do things that are going to compromise your opportunities in the future. Question?
Couldn't we consider that the person with the felony is trying to redeem themselves by fighting for their country?
Yes. It's a waiver base, and it depends on, right now, they're not taking, if you're an adult, meaning you're 18 and above, and you got a felony, they're not even entertaining the waivers for that. If you're under 18 and you had a felony, they're entertaining it, meaning you'll have to interview with a couple of commanders, and the approving authority somewhere all the way in Fort Knox, Kentucky, will determine if you're eligible to serve or not. All right. Any other questions? Right. All right, education, right? So you have to have a high school diploma, right? So the Army doesn't require you to have any other skills or training outside of that. High school diploma, have to have it, right? So if you decide this is something that you want to do in your senior year, you can join in your senior year without already have graduated with a letter from your counselor saying that you are on track to graduate and you're going to graduate on this day. But if you do not graduate on that date and you already signed a contract, your contract is void. So you have to have your high school diploma to join the Army, right? So GED is a little bit different. So test-wise, you have to test higher, and you cannot drop out and join the Army. You have to wait until after your graduating class graduates. So if anyone in here is considering dropping out and getting their GED, might as well finish school, because we won't take you until then, right? All right, so marital independence. Imagine nobody in here is married and has no kids, right? So test, right? So the test. Has anyone in here heard about or have taken the ASVAB test?
No.
Heard about it? All right, so it's offered here in school, and the test is good for several different reasons, right? So one is for military entrance. If you're interested in military, you take the test, and we're able to tell you these are the jobs kind of we offer you. Another reason you would take the test is ACT and SAT prep, right? So you guys are all freshmen in this class, right? So come your sophomore year, you can take this test, and it tells you where you're at as far as SAT and ACT. And it also gives you a website that will create a study plan for you to improve your score. So it's really good for ACT and SAT prep. It's also good for career exploration, right? And that's exactly what it's designed for here in the school, right? So you take the ASVAB test, and it's along with a interest test, and it kind of tells you what you're more prone to be successful at based on your test scores and how you answer the survey, right? So it's good for a couple of different things. I recommend everybody taking it, even if you already know what you're gonna do, because if you take the test, it might either one, confirm this is the career path you should be going down, or it might open your eyes to some career path that you weren't already thinking about, right? So I definitely encourage everybody to take it. And again, they offer it here at the school once a year, and it's free. All right, occupational and career enhancement, right? So first, I'll talk about the Army as an organization, right? So the Army is a huge, huge self-sustaining organization, right? So meaning we have all the resources, all the people that we need to sustain on our own. So take the Army, put them on a world of their own, and they can continue life without needing any outside sources, right? So we kind of demonstrated that by going around asking people about the jobs and how the Army has a job for that particular job that you're interested in, right? So huge organization as far as training, right? So everybody in the Army goes through basic training, right? So may sound a little scary to some, but it's not too tough, right? So it's a 9-week course, and it teaches you the basics on military, customs and courtesies, Army values, how to walk, how to march, how to address people, stuff like that. So your basics of military is what you're being taught in basic training, right? So everybody goes through the same basic training regardless of your job, right? So it's our rite of passage. Nobody in the Army is in the Army without going to that basic training, that 9-week basic training course, right? So AIT, that's your advanced individual training. So the good thing about the Army and what the Army has to offer you as far as jobs is you pick the job that you want to do for the Army, right? So some people say that they guarantee jobs, right? So guarantee in the sense where if you don't qualify for a job based on your test scores, we definitely cannot get you that job, right? Because you don't have the aptitude to learn that job and to do that job, right? But you're not going to get stuck into doing a job that you don't want to do, right? So based on your scores, if you don't qualify, let's say you're interested in a medical job, if you don't qualify for the medical job that you want, what I'll do is I'll say you don't qualify for that job, but you qualify for these jobs. Would you be willing to do any of these jobs for the Army? So from there, you choose what you're going to do, and that's all before you actually sign any contract of anything, right? So you won't get stuck in the military doing a job that you dislike doing, right? Additional training, right? So another unique thing about the Army is we get to kind of wrap your package of service how you want it, right? So if you're interested in combat stuff and jumping out of planes and kicking out doors, you could do that, right? You could do that in the Army. But you can also do the technical jobs that we talked about as well. Or you can even do a little bit of both, right? So say, for example, I want a computer job, right? So I want an IT job for the Army. I take the test and I qualify for this IT job, but I also want to do something kind of exciting. I want to jump out of airplanes or something like that. I can get that option put onto, or that training put onto my contract as well. So I could be an IT person that is airborne qualified at the same time, right? So you get to kind of wrap your package how you want to wrap it with the Army, right? Any questions about that? All right, critical jobs and skills. So we have over 150 jobs. Anything you can think of, there's probably a job for it, right? So these are the major fields that we have, but there's tons of jobs than just these here, right? Our website has all of them if anyone is interested in seeing exactly what jobs we have to offer. The goarmy.com website has all of them, right? So let's talk about what your training in the military means for training in the civilian sector, right? So any job you do for the Army, you're going to be trained in it and you're going to be certified in doing it, right? So whatever training you do for the Army is going to convert to some type of credit hours in the civilian sector, right? So for example, I do logistics for the Army and I got trained for 12 weeks for my logistics job. When I decided I was ready to go to college, I sent the college that I wanted to go to my military transcript. They converted all my military training, which was my logistic training, as well as some other training, some combative training, some what we call combat lifesaver, which is first aid pretty much. So they converted all my military training to civilian credit hours. So before I even stepped one foot into a college, I already had 30 credit hours of college just based on my military training, right? All right, so money for college. All right, so how many people in here plan on going to college after they graduate? Show of hands. All right, what about a trade school? All right, so for the most part, everyone wants to go to college or trade school. Is there anyone that just wants to go straight into the workforce and not further educate themselves after high school? One. All right, so you planned on, let me see, the mechanic, right? That's the job that you wanted to do?
Yeah.
You don't think that you need some type of credentials in mechanic work? Or you probably don't, but you don't think it would be beneficial for you to get some type of training, some type of education in that?
Probably like a technical college or something.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So now I'm going to tell you how the Army can pay for either your college, your technical school, or any further education that you want to do after you graduate high school. All right. All right. So there's a couple different ways that the Army pays for your education. Right. So we'll hit on these 4 programs here. All right, so first one, tuition assistance, right? So this is what you use while you're under contract, right? Meaning while you're in the military, right? So this is what I use to go to college now, right? So $4,500 a year is what they give you in tuition assistance for school, right? So it doesn't seem like much, but it ends up being just the right amount, right? So I'm a full-time, I work for the Army full-time, so that's 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. So it's only feasible for me to take 1, maybe 2 classes a semester because of my work schedule, right? So that equals out to be the $4,000 a year, right? So it's just the right amount for a full-time active duty person, right? So while you're on active duty, you take online classes or you take night classes, right? So every major installation has colleges and universities that come onto the campus and give classes there. So the soldiers of that installation can go to school pretty much, right? All right, so next we got, so the tuition assistance that's for while you're in the military, right? So while you're out, they got this really cool post 9/11 that is pretty much a 4-year full ride scholarship, basically is what it is, right? So it's fairly new program. It covers 36 academic months, and you have from the time that you exit the military to 15 years to use this. And basically they pay you $1,000 a year for books. They pay 100% of your tuition and fees for any college or university you want to go to, whether that be here in Florida or throughout the U.S. Any school you want to go through, 100% paid for. Right? So another thing that they're paying for now is the housing allowance. Right? So they're paying pretty much the housing allowance for the area that you're going to school in. Right? So they're paying your rent. They're paying you for your books $1,000 a year, and they're paying 100% of your tuition with this program here. All right? So essentially it's a 4-year, similar to a 4-year full ride scholarship is what it is, really. All right, so the post 9/11 covers public universities and public colleges, right? So let's say you wanted to go to a private university. There's programs out there like this Yellow Ribbon program that will cover the gap in between what the highest paid university in the state is to what that private installation is charging you pretty much. So essentially you can go to school for free to a private university as well as a public university. All right, so the CONUP is the concurrent admissions program, right? So this program is also fairly new, came around in 2014. And basically what it is, it's an agreement between the government and over 2,000 colleges and universities, right? So with this agreement, they pretty much guarantee admission into their college or university as long as you meet the minimum academic requirements for that college or university. You're 100% accepted because you're considered a veteran, right? All right, so just an example of the schools that are here in Florida that participate in this. All right, so this is just Florida. This is not the rest of the states. And there's a couple pages. So just take a look. If you're thinking about a college that you want to go to, take a look and see if it's on the list, right? So say there was a school that you wanted to go to that's not on that list. That doesn't mean that you can't go to that college or university. It just means that they're not in the agreement and they will not automatically accept you. That means that you'll have to apply just like everybody else, do their application process like everybody else, right? All right, so was there a college that somebody in here was thinking about that was not on this list here? What do you got? NYU. Is that a private school? If it's a private school, it won't be on the list. But like I said, if it's not on the list, it doesn't mean that your school is not going to be paid for. It just means that they're not in the agreements and they won't automatically accept you into their school. So you can go there and the government's going to pay for your school. You just have to apply like everybody else, like I said. All right, student loan repayment. So nobody in here has any student loans yet. No. All right, so diversity. So this list here is the list of major installations that the Army has throughout the U.S. to include some overseas locations as well. But this is just major installations. So you can find yourself in way more locations than just these here, right? So this is just a listing of major Army installations, right? So let's talk about diversity as far as the culture in the Army, right? So the Army is made up from people from all over, right? To include people from different countries, right? So all you need to qualify to join the Army is a I-551 card, which is a green card, and you later get your citizenship through the Army, right? So you can imagine just the diversity as far as people in the culture in the Army. We're from pretty much everywhere, right? Let's talk a little bit about equal opportunity and stuff like that, right? So I think that the Army is way more advanced than the world when it comes to that. For example, recently a lot of people in the last year, they were talking about equal pay for women to men. In the Army, it's been like that. Like we're a decade ahead of that, where women get paid the same amount, and gender has nothing to do with any advantages that you have in the military, right? So when it comes to equal opportunity and stuff of that nature, we're way more advanced than in the civilian world, right? So nobody gets treated any different for their race, their gender, their religion, their sexual preference. None of those things don't mean anything to anybody in the Army, right? Because everybody gets treated equally, right? So, and the policies that prevent that from happening are so rigid that nobody even tests the policy to even think about discriminating against anybody else, because it could essentially mean your career in the military, right? So we're way more advanced when it comes to stuff like that. All right, so financial stability and income, right? So financial stability, all right? So being a soldier in the Army, I know exactly when I'm going to get paid, and I know exactly how much I'm going to get paid, right? So every 1st and the 15th, I know that I have a guaranteed check and how much that check is going to be. So that's stability right there, right? So when you first come in the military, some people think that you don't make very much money, but an E1 makes about $1,600. So a private in the Army makes about $1,600. Some of you may not think that's very much money, but let me tell you what that private in the Army is not going to pay for, right? So they're not going to pay rent because housing will be provided for them, right? So the housing in the Army are what we call barracks, is pretty much similar to a college dorm. It's a 2-bedroom apartment, and you share the common area, meaning the kitchen area and the bathroom area, with another soldier, right? So you have your own individualized room with your own key card to get into your own room. So you have your own space, and that's all paid for. You don't pay for that. The government pays for that for you, right? As far as meals, right? So they have dining facilities throughout the bases that are there for you to eat your 3 meals a day. So your breakfast, your lunch, and your dinner. So that's another thing that you're not going to pay for. Right, so essentially your $1,600, which some people think is not very good money, is really used for paying your phone bill, your internet, because everybody has to have internet, Wi-Fi in their room. So you'll have that. If you decide to have cable, if you decide to buy a car, maybe you'll have a car note or insurance note. But as far as living expenses, you don't pay for none of that out of that $1,600 that you'll get paid monthly. Right, so I think we get paid pretty good money. The thing that I like about as far as money is you're in control over how much money you make, right? So let's say I'm a E4 and I feel like I don't make enough money. So what I can do is get promoted, right? So the Army has accelerated promotions, meaning you have control over how fast you make rate, which equals how fast promotion-wise, like money-wise, that you get to move up, all right? So you first come in, $1,600 doesn't seem like much, but you really end up making a lot after a couple years of service. I think my lifestyle is pretty comfortable. I'll just say that. All right, so vacation. All right, so we get 30 paid days of leave a year, so that's 2.5 every month is earned for leave. And how leave works is whenever you want to take a vacation, whenever you want to come home for the holidays, you put in a request saying that you want to go on leave for these dates. It gets signed off, and will come that day, you go and you sign out, and you go. You go, either you go travel, you come back here to visit your family. But for the most of the part, the Army works on kind of like a 9-to-5 schedule, right? There's some jobs that are shift work type jobs. So like military police, if you work in a hospital, you can imagine that they run 24-hour operations. So they have more shift work style work schedule, right? But the rest of the Army, 9-to-5. So after 5, those nights, you do whatever you want. Those weekends, we're off on every federal and national holiday. So we get almost a 3 or 4 day every month, right? So we have a lot of time off to kind of do what we want to do, right? So the military is really just a job, right? So you're off on your nights and your weekends to do whatever. If you have hobbies that you want to do, if you want to take classes, night classes or classes online, you have the opportunity to do that. All right, so then there's your excitement, right? So your excitement kind of starts in basic training. You get to do some pretty cool stuff. And then a lot of the other stuff, the more advanced stuff, is optional as far as volunteer. So, right, so nobody's going to make you jump out of planes if you don't want to. So if you don't want to go to airborne training, you won't ever have to, right? So I have no desire of jumping out of a perfectly fine airplane, so that's not something that I'm willing to do, right? But there are some thrill seekers out there that wouldn't mind getting paid to get some excitement in their life and jump out of some airplanes. You had a question for me?
Do you remember when you said you could go back and request to go off the job for holidays and stuff?
Yes.
Is there ever a time they would deny that request?
Yes. So it's depending on the mission that you're doing, right? So for the most part, holidays, they'll give what's called blocked leave. And what that is the command will put out from like mid-December to mid-January, saying if you're gonna take leave, they can't have everybody gone at the same time. So if you're gonna take leave, you take these first 2 weeks or you take these 2 weeks. Or if you're training up to go overseas, like to go on a deployment, they could deny it at that time because the training is more important. Like you don't want to miss training if you're going to go in a situation like that. So just certain situations. For the most part though, unless there's like something that you cannot miss, they won't deny your leave. Any other questions? Right, so what time does this class end? Okay. So as far as other excitement and things that you can do, so every installation has what we call a recreation center. And on that recreation center, you can do all kinds of cool things. You can do group things. You could, there's a travel agent on every installation as well, where you can go meet with them and work out a plan to go on a trip overseas or whatever. And then they give you discounted rates for being in the military. So there's definitely chances for you to do some pretty exciting things. There's on every major installation, there's movie theaters, there's bowling. You can imagine it's just like a city here, just a fence around it. So all the things that you could do in a city are probably on a military base. Not to mention you have people of like-minded people willing to do the things that you're interested in doing. All right, so then you get your respect, your pride of service, public opinion, sense of self-worth, right? So out here in Sarasota, I've noticed that the patriotism is pretty huge out here. Like I can't go to a restaurant and eat and plan to pay for it myself because most of the time somebody anonymously pays for it. And I get a little note saying, thank you for your service, your meal is the least I can do type stuff, right? So we always get that from the community out here, right? All right, so is there any questions about anything we covered? Military requirements, what we have to offer, jobs, college benefit? What you got for me?
When you're going after basic training, and do you get to choose if you want to continue to go into like advanced training for combat?
So you're talking about doing like airborne training or like ranger training or something like that. So you do get to volunteer once you're in training for your job, but the one unique thing that the Army has is most of that stuff we can get it in your contract before you actually go, right? So we can get you the airborne training in your contract, or we can get you the ranger training in your contract. So you already know, like, I'm gonna go to basic training in this location on this date. When I finish that, I'm going to go to training for my job, which is whatever, IT, engineering for this, and then I'm going to go to airborne training after that, and it's all in your contract, so it's like guaranteed pretty much. Any other questions for me? All right, I got a couple minutes. I'm going to ask you guys some questions. All right, so we talked about jobs and who has a job. Let's see who the oldest person is. 16. Who's 16 in here? 16. 1. You're the oldest person in the class. What about this youngest person? I talked to you already. How old are you? 14. Is anyone else 14 here? Uh-oh. Got some competition. What about born in January? Born in February? March? So I think we found our youngest person right here.
I just turned 15.
Oh, I'm talking about if you're 14. All right, March, April. April. There you go. Oh, both of you guys. All right. So what's your name? Stephanie. All right. So what do you do after school? What are your hobbies?
Well, sometimes I go to Raider practice.
Oh, so you're part of the Raider team. Oh, that's pretty cool. I wish they had the ROTC in my school. I wasn't exposed to the ROTC when I was in high school. They didn't have it. But coming here, that's a really good program. A lot of people think it's a feeder into the military, which in some cases it is, but it's really just a leadership class. So leadership class is what it's designed to be, right? So what other hobbies do you have besides ROTC? All right, thank you guys. Thank you guys for having me.